going to get started, probably have a rather shorter talk.
Yeah.
This is Daniel Schultz. He has worked for 8 years at Facebook before recently transitioning to Robinhood. He is the head of partnerships at Robinhood, and his talk will be entitled After the Algorithm. Welcome.
Yes, thank you. Cool. So I wanted to go over a few things. I wanted to kind of give a little history of how Robinhood was started, kind of talk about how trades are actually executed on exchanges, once an algorithm is actually written. And then finally, transition into just a little spiel on partnerships and kind of how Robinhood focuses on partnerships and where we're going. So I'll go ahead and start with the beginning. So we have two co-founders, Vlad Tenev and Beju Bhatt. We're both roommates at Stanford. And they actually moved out to New York in 2008, and they were building hardware for high-frequency trading platforms. So they were actually building the machines that sat in the various exchanges and that executed trades on behalf of the various hedge funds and banks. And in doing so, they realized that you can actually place trades essentially for free. And in some instances, like payment for order flow, you can actually make money placing trades. And that was right as the Occupy Wall Street movement was happening. And they realized that, maybe we can take this technology and bring it to the masses. And so that's kind of how Robinhood was born. So they moved back out to the West Coast, got a bunch of venture funding, and in 2013 started the company and went through the regulatory process of getting approved to actually start Robinhood. And so to date, we actually launched in March of 2015, so just over a year. And we have nearly 1 million users and over $3 billion traded on the platform. So we've able to grow the business quite quickly, and that's through being a commission-free stock brokerage. And so one of the questions that everyone always asks is, how do you make money? The first one is payment for order flow, which is a very small amount of what we make, and due to certain regulatory consequences might actually go away soon, so we're not banking on that. The largest one is actually margin accounts. So we do offer margin accounts, and we're going to roll that out more broadly quite soon. And then we also offer stock loan, and we're looking into some other maybe premium features to roll out in the future. So the business is nice and healthy, and I'm quite excited to have joined a few months back. So now let's get into the actual core of the talk, which is how trades are executed. So there are a number of different systems involved in placing a trade and the management of a broker-dealer. The first one is market data. So there are a number of different flavors of market data that you can get. There's tape A, B, and C. There's level 1, level 2 data. And that basically differentiates which exchange you're getting your data from, whether you're getting real-time or delayed data, and whether you're getting just the last sale data or whether you're actually getting the full order book. So the data that we use is actually NASDAQ last sale. So all the data that we're getting is really just the last sale that happened on the NASDAQ exchange. So that doesn't incorporate, all trades that are being made across all these various exchanges. It's only NASDAQ last sale, but we are at least getting real-time data from NASDAQ. So that's the first input into how a trade's executed, obviously. The next one is QSIPs. So a QSIP is actually a unique identifier that is used across all of the various exchanges. So if you're trading on different exchanges that are abroad and domestic, then certain symbols can actually be identical on various exchanges. So the QSIP allows us to use an alphanumeric code to uniquely identify that specific security that you're trying to trade in. And so we use that to ensure that we're always actually trading in the exact security that you specify. If we just specified symbols and we're trading across multiple exchanges, we could run into some problems. So the QSIP is actually pretty important. The sad thing is you do actually have to subscribe to this feed and pay a fair bit of money to access it, but it's something that we do. And so next is corporate actions. So corporate actions are another really important part of trade execution. So there are things like dividends, stock splits, mergers, et cetera, that are very important. And the tricky thing about corporate actions is there are actually no one single feed where you can get all these corporate actions from. All of the companies publish them in various different ways, whether it's on their website, whether it's in a PDF form, whether it's via email. So we actually, being computer scientists out in Silicon Valley, have developed a system that basically digests that from about 5 different areas. Our biggest areas are Thomson Reuters and Bloomberg. And they do a pretty good job of giving you corporate actions, but there's also some edge cases where we can't get it directly from them, and we actually need to go one step further and actually ensure that we are then, in fact, giving the user exactly what is happening, whether that's a dividend or a split. Then we get into trade preparation. So as I'm sure you're all aware, there are a couple different types of trades. There's obviously a market order and a limit order, and they're actually handled a fair bit differently. So the way we place market orders is actually at the NASDAQ last sale price with a 5% collar. And that's kind of the standard in the industry. And that's the path that we've gone down. And market orders must be filled with the NBBO, the National Best Bid and Offer. And so that we actually have to pull through our various exchanges and dark pools, et cetera, that we operate with. So the NBBO is updated throughout the day. It offers the highest quality offer on a security in that given time frame. And so our orders are all routed through a company called Instinet. And so Instinet actually routes all of our orders to the NASDAQ, NYSE, BATS exchanges, dark pools, as well as a few other of these private exchanges. And so what that does is that allows us to actually give our users the best actual execution that they can possibly get. And so Instinet has been a big partner for us to allow us to actually execute these orders, wherever we want, essentially, including the various dark pools. And there are a number of actually non-regulated exchanges, and the process for these is actually exactly the same. So thankfully, Instinet has built into these various ones, and that gives us just a much larger pool of trades that we can offer to our users. Then we finally get to the actual execution of the trade.
Just one question on
Yeah.
Instinet routing. When the order gets executed through Instinet, do you have a choice of which broker to execute with?
So on a limit order, we do. On a market order, we don't. On a market order, we have to follow the NBBO and give the user the whatever is the actual lowest price and best offer available. But for a limit order, if there are a number of orders that are available, we can then choose. So.
And when you don't have the choice,
Mm-hmm.
you get a confirmation of which broker is executed.
We actually don't surface that. We do not. It's something that we probably could do, but at this time, we actually don't surface that in like trade confirmations, for instance. And also, feel free to ask questions at any time. I'm pretty easygoing. So trade execution. So yeah, we route through Instinet at first. Once the trade is actually submitted, so user logs in. Right now, we're actually only on mobile, so we have an iOS app and an Android app. We don't have a web product that you can place trades through at this time. Once the order is received, we send it to Instinet. We get an acknowledgement back saying that they received the order. And at that point, they try to fill the order. And there's two ways to fill the order. There's obviously a full execution, where they execute the entire order. There's also a partial execution, where they actually can only execute part of the order. And if they execute part of the order, we get, again, an acknowledgement back saying they executed part of the order. And then we wait for the remaining shares to actually be executed and transferred to the user's behalf. So once the trade is fully executed, we confirm that. We do all the accounting on our side. And then we begin the accounting that we need to do after the fact, which I'm going to talk about next. So then post-trade, once the trade's actually executed, we have to actually settle that trade. And there's a couple of different ways that can happen. We work with two different companies, the first one being Apex Clearing Firm out of Texas, and the other one being Broadridge, which is one of the big players in the industry. And what we do is at the end of the day, we actually create this trade file that has all the trades and all of our user identifiers for the day, and we send that to both Apex and Broadridge. They do some accounting on their side. They then talk to each other and ensure that all of those shares are accounted on the user's behalf, and they do what they call a net settlement. So, if we had two users that each traded 100 shares of Apple, and each of those users had 100 shares at Broadridge and 100 shares at Apex, they wouldn't actually transfer any shares. They would just do a net settlement, account for it on their side, and keep the existing shares that they had while transferring ownership. And so this goes on after the fact, once a trade's been fully executed and the market is closed. And then after that, yes?
So I'm sure there's some cost related to the settlement. Does the user pay the settlement cost, or like where?
Nope, not right now, at least on our platform. So in full disclosure, so right now, no user pays anything to trade on Robinhood. So the only time where that's almost true. If they actually call in and talk to one of our stockbrokers, then we actually will charge $10 per trade. But if they're trading through the app, it's absolutely free. And the reason we do that is mostly to discourage people from trying to place trades through the phone.
What about
Yeah.
the 2 cent thing?
What about 2 cent thing?
Cents, the
So there are a couple of instances, and we automatically deduct that after a trade, where there's like a 2-cent fee, and we have that in our disclosures, and that is actually automatically deducted. So I guess I don't consider that necessarily a charge, and that they're not outright paying that. It's just deducted after the fact, and there are a handful of instances where we do legally have to actually deduct that. Yeah. Cool. So then last, once Apex and Broadridge are happy with each other, and they have decided that all of these, various folks have their shares allotted for the day, then we actually send another file to the DTCC, the Depository Trust Clearing Corporation, and they're the ones who actually hold the final ledger for everyone and ensure that no one is doing any fudging on their books. And so that's kind of the last part of actually the post-trade, is giving everything to the DTCC and making sure that they're happy and everything is accounted. And then last, we do one final check between Apex, Broadridge, the DTCC, and ourselves to ensure that our systems also account for exactly what they have and what we sent them for that day. So there is a fair bit of accounting involved that happens, after market close, and those are the various entities that do that. And partnerships at Robinhood. We partner with a ton of different companies. They kind of fall into two different buckets. The first is the ones that help us run our core business. This is the NASDAQ, Apex, Broadridge, DTCC, and they are really crucial to any broker-dealer that's trying to actually offer, the sales of stocks to their customers. And so we have a number of those partners. We're always looking to expand, and right now, Robinhood, we just announced this last week that we're going to be going into mainland China and offering the sale of U.S. securities to Chinese customers. And so it's becoming more and more, important that we build partnerships like this, including now, more and more payments. Payments are a little bit tricky once you start to go abroad, so it's something that we're really focused on. And then the next one is actually the folks that can help us grow the business, which is, a Quantopian. Right now, we're partnered with Quantopian, StockTwits, OpenFolio, Closing Bell, and Rubicoin. And we're doing research on a number of other partners that we're looking to bring on board. And what that does is it's giving them access to our underlying infrastructure. So Robinhood has, a back-end API that services all their customers for everything from market data to trade execution to delivery of documents, et cetera. We're hoping to open that up to more and more partners that will allow us to give access to our customers for areas that we don't necessarily want to focus on, things like news and research. It's something that we realize is important, but we really want to focus on being great at trade execution. And so it's something that we're looking for, other companies to help us develop the business on.
Can I ask you, so for
Yeah.
a company like Quantopian, are you partnering with them on their proprietary trading and or is it for access to data?
So no, neither. We're actually doing all of the trade execution. It's more to allow all of the Quantopian users or any of the Robinhood users to deploy an algorithm live on top of their Robinhood.
So how does that work in practice?
Yeah, so I don't know how familiar you are with Quantopian, but you can write, a Python script. You can back test it. There's also the ability to actually deploy the algorithm live. And they have accounts. One is Interactive Brokers, Robinhood. And so you account, so you log in with your username and password. You grant Quantopian trading features that you want, which would be, access to your account balances, access to actually, trade authorization, et cetera. And then you can deploy your algorithm live, and the Quantopian method will actually execute a trade on the Robinhood platform. Yeah.
And that's all seamless?
It's as seamless as we can make it today.
So your API access that you grant, it's
We do.
primarily to increase
Is that we would like to have Robinhood wherever we possibly can, where users would find it beneficial, especially in areas that we don't want to focus on. So like a StockTwits, or an OpenFolio where you're doing a little bit more research and analysis. It's something that we really don't want to spend the time on. And so we would love for our users who enjoy that to their directly from within all of these various, interfaces.
So it's basically symmetry between two companies.
Yeah.
For profit, correct?
Well, so right now, our current business model on this is if you're not charging for your service, we won't charge you. If you're charging, then we would like to, negotiate some sort of rev share model.
So, yeah. Profits,
We'll have plenty of time after this.
and I wanted to access Robinhood's API. Is that something that can be done?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's something that we can at least talk about. The hope and goal is to get it into a place where we're really happy about it, where we can accept a large number of applicants. So we've had about 1,500 people write in asking for this in total. We're trying to regulatory, legal issues because it's a little bit tricky, and we want to make sure that we get it right, and that's why we're at least slowing down a little bit. Yeah, but no, we should at least chat after the fact. Oh, great.
Actually, I have one real quick.
Yeah.
So when you talk about deploying live,
Mhm.
you mentioned the Quantopian supports interactive brokers and Robinhood. Do you know if I deploy it how that works?
You might be able to correct me if I'm wrong. Quantopian has the price for the trade execution on our Robinhood account. Sell data. Yeah. Was that correct?
No, so we have a separate vendor who gives us minute data. Get that separately from both.
Is it from Exignite?
We do not talk about it.
Okay.
So there could be discrepancies there.
They're technically. I was pretty sure because I think at the they're actually using.
You would have to talk to, either Josh or Tom, and I can direct you to those people afterwards.
Yeah. So there could be, especially if you have an IB account versus a Robinhood account. I can't speak definitively for exactly what happens on Quantopian. Yeah.
Fair question.
Definitely.
When you send the trade based on the last trade
Mhm.
of Nasdaq, can that be actually for thinly traded?
Can be. So that is legally what we are required to have at this time, given the SEC and FINRA regulations. But there, for a thinly traded stock, there actually could be fairly different prices on the dark pools, on NYSE, on BATS, because I don't know if you guys are aware, but any security can be traded on essentially. So the price that you get from Nasdaq could actually be or even $1 different than it was on NYSE or on some of these dark pools. And so there technically could submitting market orders, we are at least required to do the NBBO. But for limit orders, we can really kind of pick and choose. It would be slightly different than it is on a different exchange. Yes.
How do you measure the execution quality?
How do we measure the
Execution quality.
question? I think in general, the way that our engineering team has looked at it is time to execution and fully fill the order. So I know a lot of users get 2 trade confirmations that happen throughout the day. And so one thing that we have preferred to do if we can, but the majority of it is time to execution. So what about what?
Impact,
Sorry, say that.
the impact, the market impact of the order.
Yet. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, no worries.
Do you guys currently mainly working with retail investors, or are you guys thinking about bringing in advisor accounts? Because if potentially hundreds of retail investors, and that's inflow. So.
Yeah, it's something we've definitely thought about. So the way we're currently structured is that we only support individual retail accounts. So if we were to process this Quantopian, where the user would have to individually them access, we would like to develop, and we'll do it eventually, have the ability to actually have a split account, maybe a managed portion of your account and an unmanaged. And then we can be set up, in a lot better way to support those larger, RIAs, et cetera.
Is there a roadmap for that?
It's something that we're definitely thinking about. There's nothing. Yeah. Yes.
Data feed?
Yes.
NASDAQ?
Hmm.
I wonder what your kind of practical business experience is with relying so much on this one data feed. Like,
We have a couple backup data feeds.
I see.
Yeah.
And practically speaking, have you experienced
Yes.
outages,
And I think we've had 2 data outages for about 20 or 30 feed, which switches relationship with Amazon, and so we use AWS, Amazon Web Services. They've allowed us to scale quite quickly and rapidly, and they actually did the extra legwork to get the direct feeds into NASDAQ. And so NASDAQ is our primary of being up nearly all the time. Data feeds that are our backup, and we didn't fail over, so there should be no more than just a couple of seconds where you wouldn't.
What about failover on the execution center?
That's a little bit at this moment. We would not be able to execute trades that we're thinking about, and it's something that is actually a pretty tricky problem to solve because there are very few people that offer the broad range of services that Instinet does in terms of tapping into all of the various exchanges, the different dark pools, et cetera.
Sure, but for backup, you don't need that, right?
That's true, and it's something that we're actually actively working on right now. Yeah, but at this time we're solely relying on it. The majority of this, I wanted to kind of go over, how trades are executed on Robinhood, kind of where we're going on the partnerships front, and give you a little bit of a brief history of the company. I'm very excited and happy to work there, and I think we're hopefully going to keep disrupting the industry. We have many plans to both build out, internationally. We're going to offer a number of additional margin accounts. And are approved from a regulatory perspective. There are a few other things that we've been approved, like fractional shares, which is pretty interesting. So I'm happy to talk about it some more if you guys are interested, but we did recently get approved for that, as well as private placements. So being able to trade in, an untraded security like, say Uber, for instance. It's something I'm actively thinking about and working on. Yeah.
What about shorting?
Yes, so some in full disclosure, our average user is in their late 20s. And so we're debating on how to best do that, and we want to make sure that we're providing proper education and not just allowing some 22-year-old with $1,000 to get $10,000 in debt. And so
How does that comport with the margin account?
yeah, so margin will not include shorting when we first roll it out. It will not. Yeah, it will just be
You're not doing margin yet.
not well. So we have about 2,000 margin accounts live. We're rolling it out hopefully in the next couple of weeks. Yeah.
Because I noticed that the Quantopian contest, the winners of the top 100
Mhm.
all have trades going in both directions. So I'm just assuming then that they're not doing those.
Then they're on IB accounts.
They're not doing
Yeah,
them on Robinhood.
that is correct.
Which also limits you, if your strategy is based on commission free, then you can't even, if Quantopian's expecting you, because they say we prefer strategies that are covered in both directions.
Yep. No, it's something we've talked about, and they have actually probably been our most vocal partner asking for this feature, and it's something that we're definitely thinking about. We're fully approved for, and actually behind the scenes we can do that all today. It's not something that we offer through our API or our interface. It will probably be something that we actually offer to our API partners before we roll out into the app, kind of for the previous reason I mentioned, and that we want to make sure that some of our younger first-time investors are fully educated about what they're actually doing. Yeah. So we kind of feel that we have an obligation to do that. Yeah.
You mentioned $3 billion notional value, I think, traded.
Traded, yeah. We don't talk about AUM numbers
Is
yet.
that to date, or is that
That is over the last year and 1 month.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's inception to date.
Correct. Yeah. So we first onboarded about 1,000 accounts in December of 2014. We launched publicly on just iOS in March of 2015, and then we launched on Android this past October. So we've been live for, in total, about a year and a month, with the exception of those first 1,000 accounts. Yeah.
Have you received any pushback from the industry as far as your disruption?
So far, not too much. No, we actually have a really good relationship with the SEC. We've been trying to get into some interesting areas like the fractional shares, like private placements, and we thankfully hired a very good compliance officer and legal team, a number of whom have worked for very large brokerages before and done similar things, and they've kind of helped us through this process, and I hope set us up for success. So, so far it's been pretty good.
You haven't run into any roadblocks that were artificially put in front of you by the industry?
No, not yet. Yeah, not yet.
Well, not yet, but I don't think in the beginning, no.
Everything that I know of has actually been going really well. Yeah. I mean, sometimes it takes, obviously more. Living out in Silicon Valley, we expect things to happen in like minutes and days, not months. When you're working with the SEC, things only happen in months. And so obviously, it's taken some time for a number of these things to get pushed through, but we haven't had any significant roadblocks, I'd say. I'd say everything's actually gone pretty well.
And your competitors have never tried to block you legally or anything?
Nope. Not yet. Yeah.
So that's very fortunate. So in terms of things that keep you up at night, in terms of the ability to make it to the full vision, either technical, business, or others actually more interested around technical.
Yeah.
What types of things do you see?
So, especially on the technical front. So I come from a technical background, but work on more the partnership side of things. So I want to ensure that we're providing our users with the best possible experience wherever they're at. So I want to build a platform that allows, a user to go visit, say, a Yahoo Finance or a StockTwits or whatever, and never have to leave that context and be able to still securely place a trade. And that's a pretty difficult problem to actually tackle, especially with all of the different platforms that are out there today, from web to iOS, Android, et cetera. It's pretty tricky, and there are a number of things that are not blocking us to date. Mostly it's actually engineering resources, but we want to make sure that we do it right the first time. It's not something that you can screw up. And so I would love to get to the point where we can develop the equivalent of a Facebook like button for trading stocks. And with one line of code, you can drop in a trade button wherever you're at.
Got it.
That's where I would like to get. And it's a pretty tough problem, to actually fully overcome. And so we're working on it, we're thinking about it. And I think that's probably actually our biggest hurdle. Next is going to be as we continue to expand internationally. I think so far we've announced China and Australia. And we're thinking about a number of others, is then you get into, and this is what I last worked on at Facebook, international payments. International payments is also really tricky. You're dealing with foreign exchange rates, you're dealing with, moving money around the country, different local laws around how you can both keep and transfer money, different tax laws, et cetera. It's a very tricky problem, and it's something that we, again, also need to get right the first time. And so it's something we're investing a lot of time into right now.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
How do you see yourself like 10 or 5 to 10 years in the future compared to the traditional players like black brokers? Do you see in a world where ideally you business model replaces them, or is there some sort of coexistence where you both sort of satisfy different?
That's an interesting question. I cannot speak fully on behalf of our founders and how they would actually want to do this, but I would love to see the world where we replace IB, where we can make money in other clever ways, and use technology and not have as many people in actual physical offices, which is what we've done today, to actually then cut down our bottom line to where we can offer these services for a lot cheaper. I think we're also looking to partner with some companies that are charging, so we can negotiate some sort of rev share model and have another stream of income aside from margin accounts, stock loan, et cetera. So I think that's something that we need to still figure out, but we're a little ways away from actually getting there. Yeah.
But you're comparing yourself to IB, and IB is really more for professional traders. They have a very, very different feature set. than a typical retail. Your offering today is much more retail oriented, so I'm
Definitely.
surprised at using IB as
The reason I mention IB is because they're focused around their API.
yes.
And that's how they're growing their business, and that's something that we're focused on. And that's the only reason that I'm comparing myself to them at this time, is actually around kind of, the ability to access our features is through our back-end infrastructure. And IB has exposed that and done a fantastic job of expanding that, and their feature set is it's so much larger than ours will be for a while, to tell you the truth. But it's something that, we're thinking about, and it's something that we would like to focus on and be able to compete with.
But also, like, the general reluctance, I think, of the traditional trader is they don't want to trade from the mobile. So I'm assuming that once you guys have a desktop platform, a lot more business is going to come your way.
Hopefully. Yeah, it's something that, we are not yet actively working on a full feature desktop site. Not at this exact moment. We're working on hiring some web developers and actually focusing on it. Yeah, it's resources are a little hard to come by right now in Silicon Valley. So we're working as feverishly as we can to hire more folks.
You must have also broken a record for, the amount of users you have, and the fact that you guys, for customer service, don't actually have a phone number.
We do. Yes, we do. We have this has happened since the beginning.
Really?
Yeah, we hide it, so we get as few calls as possible. But no, we have 10 licensed brokers who have their Series 7, 24, 63, and they actually do man a phone all day, and we still get a lot of calls. We do.
How hidden is it? 'Cause I never
It's in the app. If you go into your account settings, you can find it there. Or if you email support@robinhood.com, it actually comes back in the reply. Yeah. And so we also, the way we've approached support is, I think, pretty unique to the industry as well. Because we have 10 folks who work on support that support nearly 1 million users. So we've been able to scale really, really well. And our average turnaround time for a ticket coming in via email is less than 24 hours, usually within 6. And nearly no call goes unanswered. So we've done a pretty good job. We use a number of different systems. A lot of them we actually use some machine learning to kind of decipher what you're actually asking. And then we send back prefabricated FAQs. And then if that doesn't answer your question, we tell you to write back in. Then you get put into a prioritized queue. And that's also when you get the phone number. And then I'd mentioned that the only time we actually charge is so if you're trying to place a trade via a broker on the phone, then we do charge you $10. And that's mostly to just discourage it because they waste our time. Yes.
So going back to the kind of previous question in IB, feature set aside,
Mm-hmm.
On Quantopian, if I were to pick IB versus Robinhood, if I were within products that you support, and I know it's kind of a tough question, so I'm asking you to talk some competition a little bit, but what is your response to somebody say, well, IB's been around, what am I paying for with IB versus getting it for free? Is the execution just as good with Robinhood?
The execution should be just as good. You're getting a lot more features. So on Robinhood at this time, you can only trade in U.S. listed securities and ETFs. So you can't do shorts, you can't do, currencies, you can't do mutual funds, you can't do any of that. So the feature set on IB is significantly larger. You can also trade on foreign exchanges. So there's, yeah.
Staying within the feature set that you support.
In terms of execution, our execution quality should be as good within what you can actually trade. Yes, it should be. Yeah.
There's this, I think, widely known distinction between iOS and Android users in terms of demographics. Have you seen any difference in volumes, sophistication?
It's a little hard to say since we've been out on iOS for so long, and since we're also only live in the U.S., we're also skewed in that sense.
That's true.
So I don't think there's been a big difference, at least that I know of, between the iOS and Android users at this time.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Curious. Separately, do you guys have any plans to do futures?
Eventually. We don't have any set time frame. It's definitely not something we're focused on right now.
Yeah, sure.
I think we're focused on bringing up the bottom line. So that's why we're going to hopefully roll out our margin account soon and some other premium features. And then we'll pivot to things like options, shorts, and expanding the actual overall feature set in addition to the international exposure.
What's the difference between Robinhood Instant and a margin account?
So Robinhood Instant is technically an unleveraged margin account. It basically just gives you instant access to funds. So rather than the T+3, we will notify you if you're going to become a pattern day trader, but allow you to get instant access to those funds. In addition, for new accounts, we will actually take on the risk of you reversing an ACH transfer and give you instant access to at least $1,000, so you can get up and trading within in its current state with Robinhood Instant, you should be able to sign up for an account, get approved, fund it, and trade within about 4 minutes. Whereas that's light years faster than the E-Trade, Scott's Trades, Fidelities, et cetera. Most of them require an actual broker to call and verify information. It takes a couple days.
So is Instant basically a temporary stopgap until margin accounts become available? Will margin accounts?
Yeah, behind the scenes, it's just unleveraged margin.
Okay.
Yeah.
But once margin accounts become available to all of us, Instant disappears, right?
No. So we will actually have a different feature when we roll it out that will differentiate it a little bit. So instant will always be for free. Margin accounts obviously will cost something, as they do with all other brokerages. And so that's why it will still be slightly different. So unleveraged margin will always be free.
Will those two coexist in harmony in
Yeah.
one account?
Yeah.
Okay, so when I become eligible for Instant or when it's available,
Yeah, hopefully you should get it soon. I know we rolled it out to like 100,000 more users just this last week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm at 111,000.
Okay. Cool. Well, if you want to chat any more privately too, I will be around for the rest of the day. So thank you guys.
Thank you.